I am Leah, 38, and literally last weekend my rep as the family glue? Yeah, it totally backfired. The piece I'd been holding together, the one I worked my butt off to keep solid, it blew up into a full-on family meltdown at my daughter Ava's 8th birthday party. My parents, with their knack for stirring up old wounds, sent a gift that gut-punched me. A pink dress, eerily identical to one my sister Emily used to wear, her name even embroidered on the collar. They demanded I let Ava wear it, and when I clapped back, the room went dead silent. "You're being ungrateful, Leah," my mother yelled with everyone staring like I'd just set fire to the kitchen. But here's the tea. Their shade didn't break me. It lit a spark. I'm not just pushing back, I'm about to flip the script and change everything. A quick note, this story is copyrighted by the YouTube channel Guest Stories. Reposting, revoicing, or editing this content without permission constitutes copyright infringement. Thank you for respecting original creative work. Now, back to the story. The package arrived 2 days before Ava's birthday, wrapped in crisp white paper with a gold ribbon, the kind my mother always used to make gifts feel like an event. I set it on the kitchen counter, Ava bouncing around me, her curls flying as she begged to open it. "Grandma and Grandpa's present," she squealed, her little hands reaching. I smiled, but my stomach twisted. My parents' gifts always came with strings, expectations, comparisons, a subtle reminder of who I wasn't. I sliced through the tape and Ava tore into it, pulling out the dress. My breath caught. Pink tulle, delicate lace trim, a soft satin sash. It was Emily's dress, or close enough to make my heart race. I turned it over and there it was. Emily stitched in gold thread on the collar. My hands shook as I shoved it back into the box. "Mommy, it's so pretty," Ava said, oblivious, her fingers brushing the fabric. I forced a nod, my throat tight. Emily, my older sister, had been the golden child, beautiful, charming, the one who could do no wrong. Even now, years after she vanished, her shadow loomed. I'd spent my life trying to measure up, only to be reminded I never would. The dress wasn't just a gift. It was a message. My parents hadn't even bothered to get something for Ava. They'd sent a relic of their favorite daughter, expecting me to play along. I tucked the box under the counter, out of sight, and distracted Ava with talk of her party. Balloons, cake, her friends from school. It was supposed to be her day, not a stage for my parents to rewrite history. But as I chopped carrots for her favorite dip, my mind spiraled. I remembered Emily twirling in that dress at her own 8th birthday, my mother's eyes glowing with pride. I'd been there, 10 years old, in a hand-me-down sweater, unnoticed. Emily's laughter, her perfect pirouettes, her ability to make everyone adore her. It was all my parents ever talked about. Even when I brought home straight A's or won the science fair, it was always, "Well, Emily's got a recital next week." That night, I couldn't sleep. The dress sat in the box like a ghost, whispering memories I'd buried. Emily wasn't just the star. She'd been reckless, manipulative. By her 20s, she was draining my parents' savings, loans for her business ventures, rent they paid when she flaked on jobs, promises she'd pay them back. She never did. Then, 5 years ago, she disappeared. No note, no call, just gone. I thought that'd be the end of it, but my parents clung to her memory like a lifeline, leaving me to pick up the pieces. Ava's party was supposed to be simple. Our backyard, a bounce house, kids running wild. I'd spent weeks planning, saving up for the cake she wanted, a 3-tiered monstrosity with edible glitter. But as I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, I knew my parents would make it about Emily. They always did. The dress was proof. I gripped my pillow, my jaw tight, wondering how I'd keep this from ruining Ava's day. I wasn't just fighting a gift, I was fighting a lifetime of being second best. And for the first time, I felt something shift. A spark of defiance. I wasn't going to let them erase me or Ava, not this time. The morning light filtered through the kitchen blinds as I poured coffee, the steam rising like the memories I couldn't shake. Ava was still asleep upstairs, her room a mess of stuffed animals and half-finished drawings, a world I'd built to shield her from the chaos I'd grown up in. But that dress, hidden now in the back of my closet, had cracked open the door to the past. I sat at the table, mug in hand, my fingers tracing the rim, and let the flashbacks come, not in a rush, but one by one, each a sharp reminder of how Emily's light had always dimmed mine. It started with my high school graduation, a day that should have been mine. I'd worked tirelessly, staying up late to study while holding down a part-time job at the local diner to help with bills. Emily's acting classes weren't cheap, and my parents had dipped into savings again. I graduated valedictorian, my speech about perseverance earning a standing ovation from the crowd. But when we got home for the family dinner, my diploma sat forgotten on the counter. My father clinked his glass, eyes on Emily, who lounged in her chair with that effortless smile. "To Emily," he said, "for landing that commercial audition, she's going places." My mother beamed, squeezing Emily's hand, while I stood there, cap still on, feeling the weight of it like a crown of thorns. I cleared my throat, holding up my medal. "What about this?" I asked, voice steady but small. They glanced over, my mother's lips pursing. "Oh, honey, that's nice too, but Emily's got real talent. Showbiz is tough." Emily winked at me, mouthing congrats, but her eyes sparkled with something sharper, like she'd won again without trying. I swallowed the lump in my throat, forcing a smile, and busied myself with plates, my hands gripping the edges until my knuckles whitened. Then there was the time I got my first real job after college, a marketing position at a small firm downtown. I'd busted my ass through internships, networking events where I handed out resumes with sweaty palms, all while Emily bounced between boyfriends and half-baked schemes. I called home excited, my voice bubbling over the phone as I described the office, the salary that meant I could finally breathe. "That's great, Leah," my father said, but his tone was distracted, like he was reading the paper. In the background I heard my mother, "Is that Emily calling back?" No, it was me, but the conversation shifted. "Emily just texted. She's starting a boutique with that investor friend. Isn't that something?" I gripped the phone tighter, my nails digging into my palm, the excitement draining out like air from a balloon. When I visited that weekend, they had Emily's business plan spread out on the table, a scribbled notebook page, praising her vision, while my job offer letter lay unopened beside it. I tried to join in, pointing out market research I'd done in school that could help, but Emily waved it off. "Leah, you're so practical. This is about passion." My parents nodded, their eyes lighting up for her, and I sat back, crossing my arms, the sting building in my chest like weddings were another battle. When I married Tom before things fell apart, I'd planned a simple ceremony, intimate and heartfelt. Emily showed up late in a dress that turned heads, stealing whispers from guests. My parents fawned over her, my mother adjusting Emily's hair mid-reception. "You look stunning, darling. Remember your prom? You were the belle." I stood in my white gown, veil slightly askew from hugging relatives, watching them. Later, during toasts, my father raised his glass to both my girls, but lingered on Emily's bright future. I clenched my bouquet, petals crumbling in my fist, smiling through gritted teeth. Tom noticed, squeezing my hand under the table, but the damage was done. Even on my day, I was invisible. And then Ava's birth. That should have been untouchable. After a grueling labor, 20 hours of pain and fear, I held her tiny form, tears streaming as I whispered promises to be the parent I never had. I called my parents from the hospital, voice hoarse. "She's here, Ava, she's perfect." They congratulated me, but the questions came quick. "Does she look like Emily? Those eyes?" Emily had such striking eyes. I stared at the phone, my free hand cradling Ava's head, feeling a protective surge. When they visited, they brought a blanket embroidered with Emily's initials. "For luck," my mother said, draping it over the bassinet. I nodded, but inside, anger simmered. My achievement, my miracle, reduced to a footnote in Emily's story. These moments piled up, each one a brick in the wall between us. Emily didn't just outshine, she exploited. She'd borrow money from me too, promising repayment with that charming grin, only to vanish for weeks. My parents enabled it, always saying, "She's going through a phase." I'd bite my tongue, my jaw aching from the effort while resentment grew. Now, with that dress mocking me from the closet, it all crystallized. Ava deserved better than this cycle. I set my coffee down, hands steady now, and decided, the party tomorrow would be the test. If they pushed Emily's ghost onto her, I'd push back. Hard. But as I rinsed my mug, doubt crept in. Was I overreacting? The flashbacks replayed, graduation silence, job indifference, wedding theft, birth overshadowed. No, this was real. My fingers tightened on the faucet, water splashing cold against my skin. Emily had disappeared, but her hold lingered, tighter than ever. I dried my hands, glancing at the clock. Ava would wake soon. Time to prepare, not just for the party, but for the confrontation brewing. I wouldn't let history repeat. Not for her. Ava's laughter echoed from upstairs as she stirred, her footsteps pattering across the floor like a reminder of what was at stake. I paused in the kitchen, towel still in hand, the water droplets cooling on my skin. That's when it hit me. The aha moment that had been building for years, crystallizing right there amid the breakfast dishes. It wasn't a dramatic epiphany with lights flashing. It was quiet, like the click of a lock finally turning. I realized I couldn't just push back at the party. I had to build something unbreakable. A life where their favoritism couldn't touch us. For Ava's sake, and mine, I needed to create a shield of independence, hidden from their judgmental eyes, forged through silent determination. My hands clenched the towel tighter, twisting it until threads strained, as the weight of that realization settled in my chest. It started that morning, but the seeds were planted long ago, right after Emily disappeared. I'd been 33, newly divorced from Tom, who couldn't handle the family drama bleeding into our marriage. Ava was 3, all wide eyes and endless questions, and I was scraping by on a part-time job at a local bookstore while freelancing graphic design on the side. My parents had called, not to check on us, but to lament Emily's absence again. If only she were here, my mother sighed over the phone, her voice cracking. She'd know what to do. I gripped the receiver, my nails biting into the plastic, feeling the familiar ache. What to do? I'd been the one handling everything. Bills, childcare, the endless grind, while they funneled money into searches for Emily, private investigators who turned up nothing. That call ended with me hanging up softly, my breath shallow, and staring at Ava playing with blocks on the floor. She looked up, smiling, and something snapped inside me. Why was I still seeking their approval? Why expose her to this? That was the spark. I sat on the couch, knees drawn up, notebook in lap, and started sketching. Not designs for clients, but a plan for us. My pen moved haltingly at first, scratching out ideas. More freelance gigs, online courses to sharpen skills, a savings account they knew nothing about. It felt rebellious, my heart pounding as if I were plotting a heist. But the struggle was real, bone deep. Nights blurred into mornings. After tucking Ava in, I'd hunch over my laptop, eyes burning from the screen glare, learning marketing, building a portfolio. Rejections came thick. Clients ghosting, payments delayed, and I'd slam the laptop shut, forehead pressed against the cool wood of the desk, tears hot on my cheeks. Why bother? The voice in my head whispered, sounding like my mother's dismissals. But I'd think of Ava, her tiny hand in mine during walks to the park, and push on. Micro steps, uploading a logo design to a freelance site, fingers hovering over submit before clicking, breath held. Then the first payment, $50, hitting my account. I stared at the notification, a small victory, but it fueled me. Years of quiet resilience followed, each day a brick in that hidden foundation. I upgraded from freelance scraps to steady clients, designing websites for small businesses, my name Leah, gaining traction in online forums. I kept it secret from my parents. During rare visits, I'd downplay it as hobby stuff, my voice casual while my stomach nodded. Why hide? Because sharing meant inviting comparison. Emily was so creative, they'd say, and it'd shatter the fragile progress. Instead, I built in silence. Mornings started at 5, coffee brewing as I reviewed emails, my robe cinched tight against the pre-dawn chill. Ava would wake and we'd eat oatmeal together, her chatter about school pulling me from the grind. But the intense struggle lingered. A client bailing last minute, leaving me short on rent. I'd pace the living room, hands ringing, calculating bills on scraps of paper. Breathe, I'd mutter, sinking into the chair, forcing myself to email 10 more prospects, fingers flying over keys despite the exhaustion. Success crept in gradually, massive in its subtlety. By Ava's 6th birthday, I'd launched my own design agency. Virtual, low-key, but mine. Contracts rolled in, a bakery chain, a nonprofit, paychecks that let me buy our cozy house outright, no mortgage strings. I remembered the day the big deposit cleared, a rebranding project for a startup. I sat at the bank, statement in hand, fingers tracing the numbers, a quiet thrill bubbling up. No fanfare, just me transferring funds to Ava's college savings, hidden from everyone. My parents? They thought I was still getting by, their occasional checks arriving with pitying notes. I'd cash them but donate half anonymously, my way of severing ties without confrontation. The hidden success wasn't flashy, it was freedom. Weekends with Ava at the zoo, her hand in mine, no worry about bills. Evenings reading to her, my voice steady, not strained by their shadows. But that morning before her 8th birthday, with the dress lurking, the realization deepened. This strength I'd built wasn't just financial, it was emotional armor. I straightened, hanging the towel, and went upstairs to wake Ava. She stirred, rubbing her eyes, and I hugged her close, inhaling her shampoo scent. "Big day tomorrow," I whispered, my chin resting on her head. Yet doubt flickered. Was this enough? The struggle hadn't ended. It evolved. Late nights still happened, but now with purpose. I dressed her for school, buttoning her shirt with deliberate care, each snap affirmation. Dropping her off, I watched her skip inside, backpack bouncing, and felt the weight lift slightly. My secret project, this life of resilience, was my triumph, unseen but solid. As I drove home, hands steady on the wheel, I replayed the journey. The aha in that post-disappearance haze, the tear-streaked nights, the quiet winds stacking up. It prepared me for tomorrow's party, where the dress would force a reckoning. I wouldn't crumble, I'd stand on this foundation. Pulling into the driveway, I grabbed groceries for the cake, bags rustling as I planned decorations. The spark from years ago had grown into a flame, ready to burn away the past. Ava deserved a mother free from chains, and I'd built that, one hidden step at a time. The groceries thudded onto the counter as I unpacked them, flour dusting my fingers like a light snow. Eggs, sugar, sprinkles. Ava's cake ingredients stared back at me, a promise of normalcy amid the storm brewing inside. But as I lined them up, my phone buzzed on the table, the screen lighting up with my mother's name. My hand froze mid-reach, palm hovering over a bag of chocolate chips. It was the eve of Ava's birthday party, the sun dipping low outside, casting long shadows through the window. I'd planned to bake tonight, decorate tomorrow morning, keep things light. Yet here was the call I'd been dreading, the one they insisted on every year before family events. A check-in that always veered into territory I hated. I wiped my hands on my apron, the fabric rough against my skin, and stared at the ringing device. Answer or ignore? My thumb circled the green button, hesitation knotting my stomach. Finally I pressed it, lifting the phone to my ear with a slow exhale. "Leah? Honey, it's Mom." Her voice was bright, too bright, like polished glass hiding cracks. I leaned against the counter, crossing one arm over my chest, fingers gripping my elbow. "Hi, Mom. What's up?" Casual, keep it casual, but she dove right in. "We just wanted to make sure the dress arrived. Ava's going to look adorable in it tomorrow. Doesn't it remind you of Emily's? I found it at that vintage shop, perfect match." My jaw tightened, teeth pressing together until they ached. The dress, again. I glanced toward the closet where I'd stashed it, hidden behind coats like a secret shame. "Yeah, it got here," I said, my tone flat, forcing the words out. She didn't notice, chattering on about how Emily had loved hers, twirling at parties, stealing the show. My father chimed in from the background, his gruff voice muffled. "Tell her to send pictures of Ava wearing it." I pinched the bridge of my nose, eyes squeezing shut, the pressure building behind them. The conversation dragged, each word a micro-assault on my resolve. I paced the kitchen now, socked feet silent on the tile, the phone cordless but feeling like a leash. Mom asked about my job. Still doing that design thing? Her disinterest palpable, like she was checking a box. I muttered about a recent client, my voice steady but my free hand clenching into a fist, nails digging half-moons into my palm. In truth, my agency was thriving. I'd just landed a major contract with a national brand, emails buzzing in my inbox about final approvals. It could mean stability, maybe even hiring help, but I didn't share. Why bother? They'd twist it back to Emily. She always had such flair for creativity. Instead, I steered to Ava, school, her soccer games, hoping to keep it light. But Dad took the phone, his breathing heavy. "Leah, we've been thinking. Tomorrow at the party we want to toast to Emily. It's been 5 years. Time to remember the good." My steps halted, body going rigid. A toast? At Ava's birthday? I gripped the counter edge, knuckles whitening, the wood cool and unyielding. "Why?" The words slipped out sharper than intended, my breath quickening. Silence stretched, then Mom again. "Because she's family, Leah. You know how much we miss her." Miss her. The words stung, a slap I felt in my chest. I turned to the window, staring at the fading light. my reflection ghostly in the glass. Furrowed brow, lips pressed thin. They missed her exploits, her drama, the way she made them feel needed with her endless crises. Me? I was the reliable one, the backdrop. The dress was no accident, it was a symbol, pushing Emily's memory onto Ava, erasing us. My fingers tapped the sill, rhythmic and agitated, as they rambled about plans to visit tomorrow, bringing more surprises. Surprises like what? More relics? I murmured agreements, but inside turmoil churned. This call was the prelude. Sensing deeper issues, the financial drain I'd uncovered last year, checks they'd sent to shady contacts claiming to find Emily, money that could have helped with Ava's braces or my business loans. As the talk wore on, I sank into a chair, legs folding beneath me, the seat cushion sinking under my weight. My elbow rested on the table, hands supporting my forehead, fingers threading through my hair and tugging lightly at the roots. The big deal loomed in my mind. Tomorrow's party overlapped with a virtual meeting for contract signatures, a life-changer that could double my income. I'd scheduled it early before guests arrived, but now doubt crept in. What if they showed up early, demanding attention, turning my focus to their grief? Dad mentioned the search again. We're close this time, Leah, a lead in California. My eyes rolled skyward, unseen, a sigh escaping. Close, always close, but never found. Emily had exploited them, racking up debts in her name, then bolting. I'd seen the bank statements once slipped to me by accident, numbers that made my stomach drop, yet they prioritized her ghost over the living. That's hopeful? I said, voice strained, forcing neutrality while my foot tapped an anxious rhythm under the table. The call wound down, promises of seeing us tomorrow, their voices laced with expectation. Love you, Mom said, but it landed hollow. I echoed it back, hanging up with a click that echoed in the quiet kitchen. My phone dropped to the table, screen dark, and I buried my face in my hands, palms pressing against my eyes until stars bloomed. The unease settled like a fog, thick and oppressive. This wasn't just a call, it was a harbinger. The dress, the toast, the endless Emily worship, it all pointed to a fracture widening. I stood slowly, joints protesting, and resumed unpacking, but my movements were mechanical. Eggs into the fridge with a careful clink, sugar bag folded precisely. Baking would wait, my mind raced, piecing together what tomorrow might bring. A confrontation? Boundaries finally set? My hands trembled slightly as I measured flour later, white powder sifting through my fingers like sand in an hourglass. Ava came downstairs then, pajamas rumpled, rubbing her eyes. Mommy, can we make the cake now? Her voice pulled me back, innocent and eager. I nodded, smiling despite the knot in my gut, and handed her a spoon. We mixed batter, her giggles filling the air, but my thoughts lingered on the call's undercurrents. As batter poured into pans, oven preheating with a soft hum, I wiped a streak of flour from her cheek, thumb gentle. This was what mattered, her joy, untainted. But the sensing deepened. The dress was a sign, unraveling threads of favoritism that could ensnare us both. I slid the pans in, timer set, and hugged her close, her small arms around my neck. Tomorrow's party loomed, a battlefield disguised as celebration. I'd prepare not just balloons and games but my resolve. No more invisibility. As the kitchen filled with vanilla scent, I straightened, shoulders squaring, ready for whatever unfolded. The vanilla scent lingered in the kitchen the next morning as I frosted the cake. My knife smoothing pink icing in careful swirls, sprinkles catching the light like tiny jewels. Ava bounced around me, her excitement palpable, tugging at my sleeve to add more glitter. Mommy, it's perfect, she exclaimed, her fingers sticky from sneaking tastes. I smiled down at her, wiping a smudge from her nose with my thumb, the motion tender but my mind already racing ahead to the guests arriving soon. Balloons bobbed in the backyard, tied to chairs under the rented canopy, and the bounce house inflated with a low hum from the compressor. But as I set the cake on the table outside, the front doorbell rang, sharp and insistent. My stomach tightened, a quick clench like a fist squeezing inside. It was them, my parents, early, as always, ready to claim the spotlight. I smoothed my shirt, hands brushing down the fabric, and walked to the door, each step measured, forcing a welcoming expression onto my face. Opening it, there they stood. Mom with her perfectly coiffed hair, a bakery box in her arms, another cake, no doubt, and Dad behind her, arms laden with wrapped gifts, his glasses slipping down his nose. Leah, darling. Mom swept in without waiting, air kissing my cheek, her perfume overwhelming, floral and cloying. I stepped back, arms crossing briefly before dropping to my sides, fingers flexing. "Come in," I said, voice even, guiding them to the living room. Ava ran up, hugging their legs, and they cooed over her, Mom kneeling with a creak of her knees to pinch Ava's cheeks. "Look how big you've gotten. Grandma brought something special." Dad set the gifts down with a thud, straightening his back slowly, his hand rubbing his lower spine. But as they settled on the couch, cushions sinking under their weight, the barrage began, subtle at first, like drips from a faucet, building to a steady stream. Mom glanced around the room, her eyes scanning the modest decorations, streamers I'd hung myself, twisting slightly in the breeze from the open window. "This is quaint," she said, lips curving in a smile that didn't reach her eyes. I busied myself with coffee mugs pouring from the pot, steam rising as my hand steadied the handle. "Thanks, I think Ava likes it." But she waved a hand, rings glinting. "Oh honey, remember Emily's parties? We rented that hall once with the clown and pony rides, so extravagant." Her voice lilted, nostalgic, and I felt the first prick of contempt, like a thorn under my skin. I set the mugs down harder than intended, the clink echoing. Dad sipped his, slurping slightly, then added, "Yeah, Emily knew how to throw a bash. Kids still talk about it." I nodded, lips pressed thin, turning to fetch cream, my fingers gripping the fridge handle until the cold bit into my palm. Why start with that? Ava's day, already overshadowed. As more guests trickled in, Ava's school friends with their parents, my neighbor Sue with her homemade cookies, the focus shifted, but not for long. Mom cornered me in the kitchen while I sliced fruit, her elbow brushing mine as she leaned in. "Did Ava try on the dress yet? I can't wait to see her in it." My knife paused mid-cut, apple halves tumbling onto the board. I glanced at her, her eyes expectant, brows arched. "Not yet," I muttered, resuming slicing, the blade thudding rhythmically. She sighed, a dramatic exhale, hand to her chest. "Leah, it's such a thoughtful gift. Emily looked like a princess in hers. Everyone said so." The backhanded compliment hung there, implying Ava could too, if only I'd comply, but really underscoring my failure to match Emily's glow. I scooped the pieces into a bowl, fingers sticky with juice, avoiding her gaze by focusing on the vibrant colors, red skins, white flesh. Dad wandered in then, grabbing a grape from the platter, popping it into his mouth with a chew. "Your mother's right. It's tradition. Emily wore it, now Ava, keeps the family connected." Connected to what? A ghost who'd bled them dry? I wiped my hands on a towel, fabric twisting in my grip, the motion repetitive and soothing. Outside, the party ramped up, kids shrieking in the bounce house, their shadows jumping against the fabric walls. I circulated, chatting with parents, my smile fixed, cheeks aching from the effort. But Mom followed, pulling me aside near the gift table, her hand on my arm, nails lightly pressing. "Leah, your job? Still freelancing? That's flexible." Her tone dripped condescension, like flexibility meant unstable, unworthy. I shifted weight from one foot to the other, grass soft under my shoes. "It's going well actually, steady clients." She tilted her head, a pitying look. "Well, Emily was always the ambitious one, her ventures so bold." "Bold like scamming investors?" I bit my tongue, the metallic taste grounding me, and excused myself to check on Ava, who was opening presents, paper ripping in her eager hands. The comments kept coming, woven into every interaction. Dad, watching the kids play tag, nudged me with his elbow. "Ava's energetic, huh? Emily was a natural athlete, track star in school." I crossed my arms, hugging myself, the breeze chilling my skin. "Ava loves soccer," I replied, but he chuckled. "Soccer's fine, but track, that's real speed." "Fine," the word echoed, diminishing. Later, as I lit the candles on the cake, my cake, not theirs, Mom whispered over my shoulder, breath warm on my ear. "We brought a backup cake just in case. Yours looks homemade." Homemade, like amateur. The match flickered in my fingers, flame dancing before I blew it out, smoke curling up. I sang Happy Birthday with the group, voice joining the chorus, but inside, resentment simmered, hot and bubbling. Throughout, I endured, micro-movements betraying my strain. A clenched jaw when Mom reminisced about Emily's perfect birthdays, teeth grinding softly, averted eyes as Dad compared Ava's drawings pinned to the fence to Emily's artistic masterpieces. A forced laugh, short and brittle, at their jokes about my single status post-divorce. Emily always had suitors lining up. Each barb landed, building contempt like layers of paint, thick and suffocating. Ava, bless her, stayed oblivious, laughing with friends, but I caught her glancing at me, brows furrowed when Mom pulled out old photos on her phone. Emily in that dress, beaming. "See, just like this," Mom said to Ava, holding the screen close. Ava nodded politely, but her hand sought mine under the table, small fingers interlacing, squeezing. That touch grounded me, a reminder of why I built my hidden strength. As the afternoon wore on, sun dipping, casting golden hues over the yard, the initial barrage eased into a lull, guests mingling. But the damage lingered, a gauntlet I'd navigated, body tense, shoulders hunched slightly from the weight. I refilled punch bowls, ladle clinking against glass, mind whirling. This wasn't just reminiscing, it was erasure, pushing Emily's legacy onto us. My free hand balled into a fist at my side, nails pressing crescents into skin. The party continued, but the contempt had set the stage, wounds reopening, ready for escalation. The lull in the party didn't last. It was like the eye of a storm, calm before the real chaos hit. As guests began thinning out, parents herding tired kids toward cars, goodbyes waving from the driveway, I found myself back at the gift table, stacking crumpled wrapping paper into a trash bag, the crinkles loud in the quieting yard. Ava was inside now, playing with her new toys on the living room floor, her laughter faint through the screen door. My parents lingered, of course, settling into patio chairs with fresh cups of coffee, their postures relaxed but eyes watchful. Mom sipped hers daintily, pinky extended, while Dad leaned back, crossing his ankles, the chair creaking under him. I joined them reluctantly, pulling up a seat, my legs folding stiffly as I sat, hands clasping in my lap to hide the slight tremble. The sun hung lower now, painting the sky in oranges, but the warmth did little to ease the chill settling in my bones. This was the moment I'd sensed coming, the conversation that always followed their visits, where Emily's absence became the star. It started innocently enough, or so it seemed. Mom set her cup down with a soft clink, saucer rattling slightly, and leaned forward, elbows on the table. "Leah, we've been meaning to talk to you about something important." Her voice was low, conspiratorial, like she was sharing a secret rather than dropping a bomb. I nodded, my fingers interlacing tighter, knuckles pressing white. Dad cleared his throat, a gravelly sound, and adjusted his glasses, pushing them up the bridge of his nose with one finger. "It's about Emily. We've got a new lead. A detective in Arizona thinks he's found her trail. It's costly, but worth it." Costly. The word hung there, and I felt my breath hitch, chest tightening like a vice. They'd mentioned searches before, but this felt different, more deliberate. I shifted in my chair, the wicker digging into my thighs. "Another one? How much this time?" My tone came out sharper than planned, edged with the frustration bubbling up. Mom's eyes narrowed, brows drawing together, and she reached across the table, patting my hand, once, twice, her touch light but condescending, like soothing a child. "Oh honey, don't worry about the money, we're using some of the savings. Emily needs us." Needs us. I pulled my hand back slowly, tucking it under the table, fingers curling into my palm. Savings they'd built for retirement, the same pot they'd dipped into for her endless loans before she vanished. I'd seen the toll, fewer vacations, Dad working overtime at 70, but me? I'd offered help, sent checks when Ava was little, only for them to wave it off. "What about what we need?" I asked, voice steady but low, glancing toward the house where Ava's giggles floated out. Dad sighed, a heavy exhale, rubbing his chin with rough fingers, stubble rasping. "Leah, you're doing fine, your little design thing, it's stable, right? Emily, she's out there, struggling. We have to prioritize family." Prioritize. The word sliced through me, and I felt heat rise in my cheeks, a flush I couldn't hide. I leaned forward, elbows hitting the table with a thud, my coffee untouched and cooling. "Family? I'm family. Ava's family. Today was her birthday, and all you've talked about is Emily." My words tumbled out, each one weighted, my throat tightening around them. Mom's lips pursed, a thin line, and she glanced at Dad, their eyes meeting in that silent communication they'd perfected over years. He nodded slightly, then turned to me, his gaze steady but cold. "Leah, we've decided. We're putting everything into finding her. Selling some stocks, maybe the cabin. If that means less for other things, so be it." Other things, like visits, like support for Ava's future. I stared at him, my eyes widening, breath coming in short bursts. This was it. The escalation. the formal cutoff veiled as devotion. The conversation spiraled from there, voices rising like a tide. Mom jumped in, her hands gesturing animatedly, rings flashing in the dying light. "You don't understand, Leah. Emily was always the one who needed more, her spirit, her dreams. You've always been so independent. Independent, like a fault." I gripped the table edge under the surface, nails scraping wood, the splintery feel grounding me as anger surged. Independent because I had to be. You poured everything into her, even when she took advantage. The truth slipped out, raw and unfiltered, my voice cracking on the last word. Dad's face hardened, jaw setting, a muscle twitching in his cheek. Took advantage? She was ambitious, unlike some who settle for safe jobs and quiet lives. Settle. The contempt dripped, and I felt it like a slap, my body recoiling slightly, chair scraping back an inch. They kept going, building their case, each sentence a brick in the wall they were erecting. Mom listed Emily's achievements, the modeling gigs that fizzled, the business ideas that flopped, but spun them as triumphs, her voice passionate, hands clasping as if in prayer. "We're committing fully now. No more half measures. If you can't support that." She trailed off, but the implication hung heavy. Dad finished it, leaning in, his breath smelling of coffee. "Then maybe it's time we focus where it's needed. You're on your own, Leah. We've given enough." On your own. The words echoed, a verdict delivered casually over patio furniture. I sat back, breath escaping in a whoosh, my hands dropping to my lap, fingers numb. This wasn't financial, though that stung. It was emotional disownment, prioritizing a ghost over flesh and blood. Ava's face flashed in my mind, her earlier squeeze of my hand, and protectiveness flared, hot in my veins. I tried to respond, mouth opening, but words stuck, throat dry. My foot tapped under the table, an erratic rhythm against the leg, energy with nowhere to go. They watched me, expectant, Mom's eyes softening falsely. "We still love you, but Emily comes first. First. Always first." I pushed back from the table then, chair legs dragging on the concrete with a harsh scrape, standing abruptly. My hands shook as I gathered their empty cups, stacking them with clattering force, porcelain clinking. "I think you should go," I said, voice low but firm, turning away to hide the tears pricking my eyes. They exchanged glances again, Dad rising slowly, joints popping, Mom smoothing her skirt with deliberate strokes. As they gathered their things, coats draped over arms, the untouched backup cake left behind, the finality sank in. This announcement wasn't spur of the moment, it was calculated, a line drawn in the sand. I walked them to the door, steps mechanical, hugging Ava goodbye for them as she waved innocently. Mom paused on the threshold, hand on the frame, fingers gripping wood. "Think about it, Leah. Family sticks together." But her eyes said otherwise, prioritizing absence over presence, effectively cutting me off. I closed the door softly behind them, latch clicking, and leaned against it, forehead pressing cool paint, breaths deep and ragged. The party was over, but the real fallout had just begun. The screen door clicked shut behind me as I stepped back inside, the sound echoing in the now quiet house, Ava's toys scattered across the rug like remnants of a battlefield. I leaned against the counter, palms flat on the cool granite, fingers splaying out as if to steady the world spinning around me. The emotional disownment still rang in my ears, their words, casual yet cutting, prioritizing Emily's ghost over everything. My breath came in shallow puffs, chest heaving slightly, and I closed my eyes, willing the tears not to fall. Ava looked up from her pile of presents, her small face curious, tilting her head. "Mommy, are Grandma and Grandpa coming back?" I forced a smile, lips stretching tight, and knelt down, gathering her into a hug, her warmth seeping through my shirt. "Not tonight, sweetie. Let's clean up a bit." We stacked boxes, my hands moving automatically, folding paper with precise creases, but my mind replayed the conversation, each barb lodging deeper. As dusk settled, the living room dimmed, lamps casting soft glows that did little to chase the shadows in my heart. Ava yawned, rubbing her eyes with the back of her hand, and I tucked her into bed upstairs, pulling the covers up to her chin, tucking stray curls behind her ear. "Best birthday ever?" I whispered, voice soft. She nodded sleepily, clutching her new doll, and I kissed her forehead, lingering, inhaling her innocent scent. Downstairs, I poured a glass of water, the faucet running cold, splashing against the sink as I stared out the window at the dark yard. The bounce house deflated now, a limp heap. That's when my phone buzzed on the counter, vibrating insistently, the screen lighting up with "Mom." My hand hovered over it, fingers curling back, hesitation gripping me like a vice. Why call now? To twist the knife? But curiosity or masochism won. I swiped to answer, lifting it to my ear with a slow motion, my other hand gripping the glass until my knuckles ached. "Leah? We didn't finish talking." Mom's voice came through, tentative at first, but gaining that familiar edge. I set the glass down with a clunk, leaning against the fridge, the hum vibrating through my back. "What more is there?" I asked, tone flat, staring at my reflection in the window, pale, drawn. Dad was on the line too, speakerphone echoing slightly. "We wanted to explain," he said, his words measured, like reading from a script. "Explain." I crossed one arm over my chest, fingers digging into my elbow, nails pressing skin. They dove in, revealing layers I'd suspected but never confirmed. "We've been sending money," Mom admitted, her sigh audible, "to a fund for Emily, in case she comes back. Clothes, keepsakes, even donations to causes she loved." My breath caught, a sharp inhale. "A fund?" I paced now, socked feet padding softly on the tile, the phone cordless but feeling heavy in my hand. The details poured out, each one a revelation that confirmed their bias, pushing me closer to the edge. Dad elaborated. "Last month, 5,000 to a search agency in Mexico. They think she might be there. 5,000. I stopped pacing, hand flying to my mouth, stifling a gasp. That was more than my monthly earnings some years back, money they claimed was tight. "And before that," Mom added, voice softening as if it helped, "we bought that dress replica, embroidered her name, to keep her memory alive for Ava." "For Ava?" My jaw clenched, teeth grinding audibly, the sound loud in my ear. This wasn't memory, it was obsession, financial exploitation of their own grief, draining resources while ignoring the living. I thought of my hidden agency, the contracts I'd fought for, savings I'd scraped, all without their help, because they'd poured it into this void. "Why tell me now?" I whispered, voice cracking, leaning forward over the sink, free hand gripping the edge, knuckles white against porcelain. They kept going, the call stretching into a tense unraveling. Mom's tone turned pleading. "We thought you'd understand, Leah. You're so strong, you don't need us like she does." "Need." The word twisted inside me, anger flaring hot. I straightened, wiping my eyes with the back of my hand, tears hot on my skin. "She disappeared after taking everything. And you're still giving?" Dad's response was gruff. "Family forgives. We've set aside her share of the inheritance too, in trust." Inheritance. My pulse thundered in my ears, vision blurring slightly. That was supposed to be split, a safety net for Ava, for emergencies, now funneled to a phantom. I sank into a kitchen chair, legs giving way, the wood hard against my back. My fingers drummed the table, nails tapping an erratic beat, energy coiling. The confirmation hit like waves, ongoing support for Emily's memory, checks to dubious contacts, items like the dress bought in bulk. "We have more at home," Mom said casually. Each admission built the bias into a fortress, their voices overlapping in justification. "Emily was special," Dad said, "her spark, we can't let it die." Special. I bit my lip, tasting blood, the metallic tang sharp. What about my spark? The agency I'd built in secret, the deal I'd signed that morning before the party. A 6-figure contract that could change everything. But I didn't mention it. This wasn't about proving worth. It was about their betrayal, exposed raw. "You've chosen her over us," I said finally, voice low and trembling, standing again, pacing renewed, steps quicker now. They tried backpedaling, Mom's voice rising. "No, Leah, it's not like that. Join us. Contribute to the fund." "Contribute?" Laughter bubbled up, bitter and short, escaping before I could stop it. My hand covered my mouth, muffling it, but they heard. Dad's tone hardened. "If you can't support this, maybe we need space." Space. From me, the one always there. The breaking point crested then, a wave crashing. I stopped at the window, forehead pressing against cool glass, breath fogging it. "You've already created space," I replied, words deliberate, each one a step toward freedom. The call dragged on a few more minutes, their pleas turning to guilt. "Think of Ava, she needs grandparents." But Ava needed peace, not this toxicity. Finally, I ended it. "Goodbye." My thumb pressed the red button, screen going dark, and I set the phone down with a deliberate click, hands shaking. The kitchen spun slightly and I gripped the chair back, wood smooth under my palms. This call had changed everything, revealing the depths of their prioritization, the financial web woven around Emily's absence. It pushed me to my limit, the cycle of hurt crystal clear, no more. I wiped my face, breaths deepening, resolve hardening like steel. Ava slept upstairs, safe. Tomorrow I'd cut contact, freeing us. But tonight the revelation lingered, a turning point etched in pain. The phone lay dark on the counter, but the silence didn't last. Barely a minute passed before it buzzed again, vibrating against the wood like an insistent knock. I stared at it, my reflection warped in the screen, eyes red-rimmed from the unshed tears. Mom's name flashed, persistent, demanding. My hand hovered, fingers curling and uncurling, the cool air of the kitchen raising goosebumps on my arms. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to let it ring out into voicemail, but the anger surging through me like a fire finally fed oxygen pushed me to answer. This wasn't over. They'd scrambled back, probably sensing they'd gone too far, ready to reel me in with more guilt. I swiped the screen, lifting it to my ear with a deliberate slowness, my other hand clenching into a fist at my side, nails biting into palm. Leah? Don't hang up. Mom's voice rushed out, breathless like she'd been pacing too. In the background, Dad muttered something indistinct, his tone gruff and urgent. I leaned against the wall, shoulder pressing into the textured paint, grounding myself as the hypocrisy unfolded before me. We didn't mean it like that, she continued, words tumbling. We're just worried about Emily. You know how fragile things are? Fragile. I let out a short, mirthless laugh, the sound echoing hollow in my throat. My free hand rose to my forehead, fingers massaging temples in slow circles, pressure building behind my eyes. They were scrambling now, backpedaling from the verdict they'd delivered so casually, but I could hear the desperation. The stunned realization that I might actually walk away. Dad took over, his voice booming through the speaker. Leah, come on, family doesn't turn on each other, we've always been there for you. Always? The lie ignited something deep, and I pushed off the wall, pacing again, steps measured but forceful, heels clicking softly on the tile. Been there? I echoed, my tone calm, eerily so, like the still before a storm. I stopped at the sink, gripping the edge with one hand, knuckles paling as I exposed the layers they'd buried. Where were you when I was building my life from scratch after Tom left? When Ava was a toddler and I worked nights designing logos just to pay rent? Silence stretched, thick and telling. Mom stammered. We sent checks sometimes. But I cut in, voice steady, each word a precise cut. Checks you could spare because you weren't funneling thousands into Emily's black hole. You prioritized her scams over my stability. The scramble intensified. I could picture them, Mom twisting her rings, fingers fidgeting, Dad rubbing his chin, stubble rasping under his palm. That's not fair, Dad protested, his breath heavy. Emily needed help. Her dreams. Dreams. I shook my head, though they couldn't see, my hair brushing my shoulders. Her dreams drained you dry. Remember the investment in her boutique? 10 grand gone, no repayment. Or the acting classes, another 5, while I begged for help with daycare. My fingers tightened on the phone, plastic creaking slightly. I'd kept records, not out of spite but survival. Bank statements I'd glimpsed during visits, numbers that added up to betrayal. Now I laid it bare, calmly, without raising my voice, letting facts do the damage. You've spent over $50,000 searching for someone who exploited you, while ignoring the daughter who never asked for a dime. Mom's voice cracked, a small sob escaping. Leah, please, we're family. Ava needs us. The guilt trip, predictable as ever. I glanced upstairs, where Ava slept peacefully, her door cracked, nightlight glowing softly. My chest tightened, but not with sorrow, with resolve. Ava needs a mother who's free from this poison. You've made her birthday about Emily's ghost, sent a dress with her name like some twisted heirloom. Dad interjected, stunned edge sharpening his words. It's tradition. We thought it'd bring us closer. Closer. I snorted softly, turning to face the window, my reflection staring back, determined now. Tradition of favoritism. Emily outshone me at every turn. Graduations, jobs, even my wedding, you celebrated her failures as ambition, while my successes were practical. They scrambled harder, voices overlapping in a frantic duet. Mom, we love you both equally. Dad, don't do this, think of the holidays. But I held firm, exposing the core hypocrisy like peeling back rotten fruit. Equally, you've set aside inheritance for her return, while I've built an agency from nothing. A 6-figure deal closed this morning, enough to secure Ava's future without your help. The words slipped out, the hidden success revealed not for bragging but to underscore their blindness. Silence hit like a wall, stunned and absolute. I could hear their breaths. Mom's quick and shallow, Dad's labored, as the truth sank in. My agency, thriving in secrecy, was proof. I'd succeeded despite them, not because. No more invisibility. This was the reversal, calm and cutting. Mom recovered first, voice pleading. Leah, that's wonderful. See, you've done well. Now let's put this behind us. Put it behind. My lips curved in a bitter smile, unseen as I shook my head again. No, you've chosen her absence over my presence, her memory over Ava's reality. That's not love, that's hypocrisy. Dad grumbled. You're overreacting, we can change. But the scramble felt hollow now, desperate grabs at a rope fraying. I straightened, shoulders squaring, the weight lifting with each breath. Change? After years of this, I'm done being the backup daughter. My voice remained even, no yelling, just finality, like closing a book mid-chapter. The powerful exit built inside me a surge of freedom. Don't call again, no visits, no gifts, no more Emily worship tainting our lives. Mom gasped. Leah, wait. But I didn't. My thumb hovered over the end button, finger steady, and pressed it with a soft tap. The line went dead, screen dimming. I set the phone down gently, no slam, just deliberate placement, and exhaled long and slow, breath fogging the nearby glass. My hands trembled slightly, adrenaline fading, but satisfaction bloomed. Twice as painful for them, twice as satisfying for me. They'd scramble more, texts or emails begging, but I'd block them. Clever revenge, in simplicity, cutting the cord they'd never valued. I walked to the living room, sinking into the couch, cushions enveloping me. Toys still littered the floor. I picked up Ava's new doll, fingers tracing its fabric, soft and untainted. The hypocrisy exposed, their stunned reactions echoing in my mind. I felt lighter. No dramatic scene, just calm truth-telling, a powerful exit from the cycle. Tomorrow I'd change numbers if needed, build higher walls. But tonight, peace settled, tentative but real. The house quiet, save for the clock ticking, marking a new beginning. The clock's ticking faded into the background as I sat there on the couch, the doll still in my hands, its plastic eyes staring blankly ahead. Morning came too soon, sunlight piercing through the curtains like a gentle intrusion, pulling me from a fitful sleep where dreams of Emily's laughter mixed with Ava's cries. I stretched, joints popping softly, and padded to the kitchen, bare feet cool on the floor. Coffee brewed with a gurgle, the aroma grounding me as I checked my phone. Blocked numbers now, their attempts at contact silenced with a few taps last night, my thumb decisive on the screen. No more scrambling, please, just quiet. Ava stirred upstairs, her voice calling Mommy in that sleepy lilt, and I climbed the steps, pushing her door open with my shoulder, mug in hand. We ate breakfast together, cereal clinking against bowls, milk splashing as she poured too much, her chatter about school filling the space where tension once lived. But the real contrast hit later that day, when my true allies arrived, turning a simple afternoon into a warm, genuine moment that highlighted everything my biological family lacked. It was unplanned, really. My best friend Carla texting mid-morning, "Hey, post-birthday hang, bringing reinforcements." Reinforcements meant her husband Mike and their kids, plus our mutual friend Jess, who'd become like a sister after meeting at a design conference years back. I replied yes, fingers flying over the keys, a small smile tugging my lips for the first time since the call. By noon, the doorbell rang, cheerful and light, unlike yesterday's insistent chime. I opened it to Carla's grin, arms full of takeout bags. Chinese, our go-to comfort food, steam escaping as she bustled in. "We come bearing noodles and no drama," she announced, kicking off her shoes with a flourish, toes wiggling on the mat. Mike followed, high-fiving Ava, who squealed and jumped into his arms, legs wrapping around like a koala. Jess brought up the rear, a bottle of wine in one hand, board games in the other, her glasses slipping down her nose as she hugged me one-armed. We settled in the living room, pushing aside yesterday's toy remnants. Dolls scooted to the corner, paper scraps swept under the coffee table with a quick brush of my hand. The contrast to the toxic family gathering was immediate, palpable, like stepping from shadow into sun. No backhanded compliments here. Carla dove right in, unpacking food with efficient motions, plates clattering as she served lo mein, her fork twirling strands before passing me a bowl. "So, Spill, how'd the party go? Your folks behave?" Her eyes met mine, knowing, brow arched slightly. I set my bowl down, fingers tracing the rim, steam warming my face. Ava was distracted with the kids in the corner building a fort from cushions, giggles rising as pillows tumbled. I leaned in, voice low, recounting the dress, the announcement, the calls, words flowing steady, my free hand gesturing minimally, palm up in emphasis. They listened without interruption, Mike nodding slowly, his hand pausing mid-bite, chopsticks hovering. Jess adjusted her glasses, pushing them up with a finger, her expression shifting from concern to quiet fury, lips pressing thin. No defensiveness, no justifications like my parents' scramble, just empathy, raw and real. Carla reached over, squeezing my knee, her touch firm and reassuring, nails short and practical. That's bullshit, Leah. You've been carrying them for years. The word hung, unapologetic, and I felt tension release, shoulders dropping an inch, breath easier. We ate then, conversation weaving around it, forks scraping plates, sauce dripping as I vented more, their nods encouraging, eyes locked on mine without wandering to phones or distractions. The warmth built in small ways, micro actions stacking like layers of a blanket. Mike cleared plates later, stacking them with a gentle clink, rinsing under the faucet while humming off-key, suds bubbling. You're badass, you know that? Building your agency solo, that's the real legacy. His words landed soft, no pity, just respect, and I dried dishes beside him, towel twisting in my hands, a nod my only response, throat tight with gratitude. Back in the living room, Jess pulled out Monopoly. Therapy edition, she joked, shuffling money with quick flicks of her wrists. Ava joined, her small hands grabbing properties, laughter bubbling as she bankrupted Mike first, his dramatic groan earning cheers. Carla sat cross-legged on the floor, leaning against my legs, her head tilting back to look up at me. Chosen family, right? We're here. No ghosts, no comparisons. Her voice was soft, hand patting my calf absently. As the game progressed, dice rolling with clicks, tokens moving in jerks along the board, the genuine moments deepened the contrast. No toasts to absent figures here. Instead, Jess raised her wine glass mid-turn, liquid sloshing slightly. To Leah and Ava, survivors and thrivers. We clinked, glasses chiming clear, my sip warm in my chest, chasing away yesterday's chill. Ava beamed, juice box in hand, mimicking the toast with a giggle. The toxic dinner's contempt, condescending questions, backhanded digs, felt distant now, replaced by this. Mike teaching Ava card tricks, his fingers fanning the deck with a flourish, her eyes wide. Carla sharing work stories, her animated gestures, hands waving as she described a client win, mirroring my own hidden successes without overshadowing. Evening crept in, sun dipping, casting golden hues through windows. We lounged, kids asleep on the couch, heads lolling. Jess hugged me goodbye first, arms tight, chin on my shoulder. Call anytime, day or night. Her squeeze lingered, sincere. Mike ruffled Ava's hair, promising a park trip soon, his wave casual from the door. Carla stayed last, helping tidy, pillows fluffed, games boxed with snaps of lids. At the threshold she turned, eyes searching mine. You're free now, embrace it. Her hug enveloped me, back pats firm, and she left, car lights fading down the drive. Alone again, I locked the door, latch clicking, and carried Ava to bed, her weight limp in my arms, breath even against my neck. Tucking her in, sheet smoothing under my palm, I felt the shift profound. This warm gathering with allies, chosen over biological, highlighted the toxicity I'd escaped. No exploitation, just support, no favoritism, just equality. My true family, built on mutual respect. Not blood obligations. As I descended stairs, steps light, peace settled deeper. The contrast wasn't revenge, it was validation. A genuine moment proving I deserved better. Tomorrow, life continued. Agency work, Ava's routines. But with this foundation, solid and warm. The next morning dawned crisp, sunlight filtering through the blinds in slivers that danced across the kitchen floor as I poured cereal for Ava, the flakes rustling into her bowl with a soft cascade. She munched happily, spoon clinking against porcelain, recounting dreams of unicorns from last night's play with friends, her words tumbling out between bites. I nodded, smiling faintly, but my mind was elsewhere, replaying the warmth of yesterday's gathering like a balm over the raw edges left by my parents' calls. Coffee mug in hand, steam curling up to warm my face, I sat across from her, fingers drumming lightly on the table's edge, a rhythm born of lingering resolve. The aftermath of cutting contact wasn't a dramatic void, it was a subtle shift, like air filling a space long compressed. But handling it required deliberate steps, building a fortress of boundaries to protect this new peace, rules I'd enforce starting today. No more half measures, no slipping back into old patterns. It began with the practicalities, small actions that fortified my decision. After dropping Ava at school, waving from the car as she skipped inside, backpack swinging, I returned home and opened my laptop on the kitchen table, screen glowing as I logged into email. My inbox blinked with unread messages, but I ignored clients for now, searching instead for family threads. There they were. A string from Mom sent late last night after I'd blocked their numbers. "Leah, let's talk. We overreacted." My cursor hovered over the delete button, finger poised, hesitation flickering like a shadow. Delete felt too final, too reactive. Instead, I created a filter, dragging the email into a new folder labeled Archived, my mouse clicking with a satisfying snap. Micro rules, no immediate responses, no knee-jerk openings. I sipped coffee, the bitter warmth grounding me, and blocked their emails too, fingers typing swiftly through settings that each checkbox ticked like locking a gate. The phone was next, its screen reflecting my determined expression as I scrolled through contacts. Their names stared back. Mom, Dad. Innocent labels hiding years of imbalance. I tapped edit, then delete, watching the entries vanish with a soft whoosh, my thumb steady despite the pang in my chest. But pangs weren't reasons to falter. They were echoes of conditioning I'd outgrown. To handle potential reaches through mutual acquaintances or unexpected mail, I jotted notes on a pad. "If Aunt Rita calls, say we're fine but busy. No details." My pen scratched paper, ink flowing in neat lines, each word a brick in the wall. This wasn't isolation, it was curation, choosing who entered our space. Ava deserved that, a mother undivided, not diluted by drama. As the morning wore on, the internal work deepened, a quiet realization unfolding amid routine tasks. Folding laundry in the bedroom, warm fabric soft under my hands. I paused with a shirt mid-fold, fingers creasing the collar precisely. The aftermath wasn't just external blocks, it was rewriting my responses, establishing rules for engagement that started within. No more guilt spirals. I'd catch them early, like now, as a whisper of, "What if they're hurting?" crept in. I set the shirt down, palms pressing flat on the bed, breathing deep until my shoulders relaxed, the air filling my lungs fully. Rule 1. Acknowledge the thought, then redirect. I picked up socks next, pairing them with deliberate snaps, focusing on the texture, wool rough against skin. This fortress was mental too, boundaries against self-doubt. Lunchtime brought a test, the phone ringing with an unknown number, likely them using a friend's line. My hand reached instinctively. Fingers curling around the device, screen cold to the touch. Heart quickening, I let it ring, watching the vibrations travel up my arm, counting to 10 in my head. Voicemail beeped. I listened later, Mom's voice tinny. "Leah, please, we miss Ava. Miss Ava." The leverage. I deleted it without replay, thumb swiping firm, then added the number to block, contacts updating with a whirl. Handling this aftermath meant consistency, no cracks for manipulation. I stood at the counter, chopping veggies for salad, knife thudding rhythmically on the board, each slice affirming, "Their pain isn't my responsibility." Carrots crunched under the blade, orange shards piling up, the motion meditative. Afternoon emails from work provided distraction, but the realization wove through them. My agency thriving because I'd set boundaries long ago, compartmentalizing family chaos. A client query popped up praising a design. I replied, fingers flying over keys, pride swelling. This success was mine, untainted. But as I hit send, a package arrived at the door, knock echoing, from my parents, no doubt. I signed for it reluctantly, pen scratching the tablet, then set the box on the table unopened, its weight solid under my palm. Curiosity tugged, but I resisted, sliding it to the side return pile, label maker whirring as I printed, return to sender. Rule 2. No gifts, no strings. My hands trembled slightly, taping it shut, adhesive sticking to fingers, but satisfaction followed, tape smoothing flat. Picking up Ava from school, her hug enveloped me, backpack thumping against my leg. "How was your day?" I asked, hand in hers as we walked to the car, her palm small and trusting. She chattered about art class, paint still smudged on her knuckles. In the rearview mirror driving home, her eyes met mine, innocent and bright. This was why. The aftermath demanded protection for her. At home we baked cookies, flour dusting the counter as she stirred dough, spoon clanging bowl. No mentions of grandparents. Our rules extended to conversations, shielding her from confusion. "Mommy, why no grandma today?" she'd ask eventually, but I'd prepared. "They're taking a break, sweetie, we have our fun." Simple, honest, my voice steady as I shaped dough balls, placing them on the sheet with gentle presses. Evening deepened the fortress building, a solo ritual after Ava's bedtime story, her eyelids drooping as I closed the book, pages whispering shut. Downstairs, I journaled on the couch, pen gliding over paper, detailing the day's handles, the blocked call, the returned package, the internal redirects. Each entry a reinforcement, ink drying dark. Doubts surfaced. Am I too harsh? But I countered with facts, listing Emily's exploitations, my parents' biases, bullet points sharp. Closing the journal with a snap, I felt the realization solidify. These new rules weren't walls of anger, but gates of self-respect, engagement on my terms only. A late text from Carla checked in. "You good?" My reply quick, thumbs tapping. "Setting boundaries. Feels right." Her thumbs up emoji glowed, a small affirmation. I turned off the lamp, room plunging into dark, but sleep came easier, body sinking into sheets. The aftermath wasn't chaos, it was construction, micro-actions stacking into strength. Tomorrow, more tests, but with these rules firm fair, I'd handle them, protecting our peace like a sentinel. The journal lay closed on the coffee table, its leather cover worn from nightly entries, a silent sentinel of my progress as I rose from the couch, stretching my arms overhead until my spine cracked softly, releasing the day's tension. Sleep had come easier, but morning brought a fresh wave of clarity, sunlight streaming through the window like an invitation to move forward. Ava was at school, her lunchbox packed with care, apple slices arranged in a smiley face, a note tucked in saying, "Love you to the moon." Small rituals that anchored me. With the house quiet save for the hum of the fridge, I settled at my desk upstairs, the chair rolling back with a soft rumble as I powered on my computer, screen flickering to life. This was where my agency thrived, designs blooming under my cursor's click, but today, the internal realization dawned slowly, unfolding like a blueprint. My success wasn't just survival. It was a tool to reclaim my legacy, to redefine the family name on my terms, creating ripples of positive impact that Emily's shadow couldn't touch. It started with an email ping, the notification chime pulling me from a client revision, colors adjusted on a logo, my mouse dragging sliders with precise flicks. The message was from a local nonprofit, one I'd volunteered designs for last year, a women's shelter. Their logo, a simple heart I'd crafted pro bono, lines curving gently to symbolize strength. "Leah, we're expanding," it read, "thanks to your branding. Donations up 30%. Want to partner on a mentorship program?" My fingers paused on the keyboard, hovering as the words sank in. Mentorship. I leaned back, chair creaking, hands interlacing behind my head, elbows out. This wasn't coincidence. It was the fruit of seeds I'd planted quietly, using my skills to lift others, a stark contrast to Emily's self-serving ventures that drained without giving back. The realization built. My family name, once synonymous with my parents' blind devotion to her, could mean empowerment instead. Leah's legacy, built brick by digital brick. I stood, pacing the room, socked feet sinking into the carpet with each step, the soft pile muffling my movements. Micro-thoughts swirled. Emily had exploited, taking loans for fleeting dreams, leaving debts and disappointment. Me? I'd bootstrapped my agency, late nights with coffee cooling beside me, mug handle gripped tight as I coded websites until my eyes blurred. Now with the six-figure deal secured, funds flowed, enough to invest not just in Ava's future, but in causes that mattered. I stopped at the window, fingers tracing the sill's wood grain, smooth under my touch, gazing at the neighborhood below, kids biking, leaves rustling. Reclaiming the name meant transforming it, from a tale of favoritism to one of generosity. No more second best. I'd make it first in impact. The realization deepened as I returned to the desk, pulling up my financial app, icons loading with a spin. Balances glowed green, numbers I'd earned through grit, proposals sent at dawn, revisions iterated until perfect, my nail biting into my lip during client calls. I transferred a chunk to the shelter's account, keyboard clacking decisively, each key press a declaration. But it wasn't just money, it was time, expertise. I drafted a response. "Yes, let's mentor young designers, especially those from tough homes." Sending it, mouse-clicking send, a thrill coursed through me, chest expanding with a deep breath. This was positive impact, guiding others away from cycles like mine, teaching resilience through art. Emily's name had been embroidered on dresses, a symbol of lost potential. Mine would be on programs empowering real lives. Memories intruded gently, not painful now but instructive. I recalled a childhood art contest, my drawing of a family tree, roots deep, branches wide, winning first place, ribbon pinned proudly. But at dinner, praise went to Emily's dance recital, my artwork forgotten on the fridge, curling at edges. I'd internalized it, shrinking my ambitions. Now, fingers scrolling through old files, I opened a folder of pro bono work, flyers for community events, websites for startups run by single moms. Each one a quiet rebellion, reclaiming space. The internal shift felt like unlocking a door, light flooding in. I could expand this, launch a foundation under my name, Leah's Legacy Designs, offering scholarships. Ideas flowed, notepad grabbed from the drawer, pen cap popped with my teeth, scribbling furiously. Workshops on graphic tools, internships for at-risk youth, partnerships with schools. Ink smudged my palm as I wrote, the motion frantic yet focused. But doubt flickered, a brief shadow. Was this ego, or true change? I set the pen down, rubbing the ink stain with my thumb, skin turning blue-gray. No, this was healing. Using success to heal wounds, not hide them. Emily had outshone with charm, exploiting kindness. I'd shine through contribution, building communities. Ava would see it, a mother who turned pain into purpose. I imagined her future, perhaps designing too, name-carrying weight of good deeds, not ghosts. Standing again, I walked to the mirror on the wall, frame dusty, wiping it with my sleeve in circular motions. My reflection stared back, 38 lines around eyes from laughter and stress, but posture straight now, chin lifted. This realization wasn't abstract, it was actionable, a pivot from defense to offense. Afternoon light shifted, warming the room as I dove deeper, researching similar programs online, tabs opening with clicks, articles loading. One story resonated, a woman like me, cutting toxic ties, founding a charity that changed lives. I bookmarked it, mouse hovering before saving, feeling kinship. My hands clasped, fingers interlacing tight, squeezing until bones ached, a physical anchor to the emotional surge. Reclaiming the family name meant stripping Emily's hold. Redefining it as mine, Leah, the builder, the giver. No revenge, just evolution. I emailed contacts, old clients, networking buddies, proposing collaborations, words typed with intent, backspacing errors meticulously. Responses trickled in, love it, count me in. Each ping a validation, my smile growing, lips curving upward, cheeks warming. As evening approached, Ava home now, backpack thumped by the door, I shared snippets over dinner, pasta twirled on forks, sauce dripping. Mommy starting something new to help kids learn design. Her eyes lit, spoon pausing midair. Like you? Exactly. We cleared plates together, her small hands stacking with care, clinks soft. Bedtime followed, story read with voices modulated, her giggles filling gaps. Tucking her in, blanket smoothed, I kissed her forehead, lingering, breath mingling. Downstairs I revisited the notepad, adding details. Funding from my deals, volunteers recruited. The realization crystallized fully then, sitting in lamplight, pen tapping chin. This was my legacy, positive, impactful, on my terms. No longer defined by parents' bias or Emily's absence, but by what I created. Peace deepened, a quiet hum in my veins, ready for tomorrow's steps. The quiet hum lingered as I set the notepad aside, the pen rolling to a stop on the table with a faint clatter, its ink tip drying in the lamplight. I switched off the light, the room plunging into a soft darkness, broken only by the moon's glow through the curtains, casting silvery patterns on the floor. Climbing the stairs, each step creaking under my weight, I paused at Ava's door, pushing it open just enough to peek in. Her chest rising and falling steadily, doll clutched in her arm, face peaceful in slumber. I closed it gently, latch whispering shut, and slipped into my own bed, sheets cool against my skin as I pulled them up, tucking my arms close. Sleep didn't come immediately. Instead, a final reflection unfolded in the stillness, thoughts weaving like threads in a tapestry, leading me to the core truth. My worth wasn't tied to their approval or Emily's shadow, it was internal, a flame I'd kindled myself, burning, steady, and true. It started as fragments, memories surfacing not with pain now, but perspective. I remembered being 12, hiding in my room after another of Emily's triumphs, a school play where she starred, applause thundering while my science project sat unmentioned. I'd cried into my pillow, fabric muffling sobs, fists clenched until my nails left marks. Why not me? I'd whispered to the dark. But lying here now, years later, that question shifted. Why seek validation from those who couldn't see me? My hand rested on my chest, feeling the rhythmic beat of my heart, strong and unyielding. The peace came in waves, washing over me as I traced the journey, from the overlooked child to the resilient woman who'd built an agency, nurtured a daughter, and now channeled success into mentorship. Each step a testament to internal strength, not external praise. The reflection deepened, my mind wandering to quieter moments, like walks in the park with Ava, her hand in mine swinging as we collected leaves, crisp edges crunching underfoot. "Mommy, you're the best," she'd say unprompted, her eyes sparkling. Those words, simple and sincere, held more weight than any parental nod I'd chased. I turned onto my side, pillow cradling my head, breath evening out. True peace wasn't absence of hurt. It was acceptance that my value bloomed from within, roots deep in self-belief, not their soil of favoritism. Emily's exploitation, their bias, it had shaped me, yes, but like a tree growing around obstacles, stronger for the bend. No more measuring against her ghost, I was whole, worthy as is. Doubt had whispered before, in the dead of night, but now it silenced. I thought of the dress, that pink relic still boxed in the closet. Tomorrow I'd donate it, hands folding the tulle one last time, releasing it without ceremony. The act symbolic, letting go of their narrative, embracing mine. My fingers traced patterns on the sheet, fabrics soft and familiar, as gratitude swelled, for Carla's hugs, Jess's toasts, Mike's encouragement, the chosen family who'd shown me mirrors of my own light. But ultimately the validation came from me, the woman who'd said no, set boundaries, and turned scars into stars. Peace settled like a blanket, warm and enveloping, my body relaxing fully, muscles uncoiling. In this quiet, I realized the cycle's end wasn't dramatic revenge but quiet freedom, free to love Ava without shadows, to create impact without seeking applause. My breath slowed, eyelids heavy, the moon's light fading as clouds drifted. Worth internal, a mantra now, etched in my soul. No more floods of painful memories, just calm waters reflecting a woman at peace. Sleep claimed me then, deep and dreamless, the first true rest in years. Have you ever felt trapped in a family dynamic that made you question your own worth, like no matter what you did it was never enough? That's where I was, drowning in comparisons to my sister Emily, until I realized the key to breaking free was looking inward. Cutting off contact wasn't easy, it hurt like hell at first. But it was the only way to stop the cycle of pain from touching my daughter Ava. Now, living with that peace, I see how reclaiming my story changed everything. If you've got a similar tale of toxic family ties, favoritism that stung, or that moment you finally said enough, share it in the comments below. Your experiences might just help someone else find their spark. Reading them reminds me we're not alone in this. So what do you think? Did I cut ties too harshly? Or not harshly enough? Drop a comment below, let's chat about it. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories of turning pain into power. Remember, your worth isn't up for debate, it's yours to own. Keep shining.